Alright guys, today we are going to be starting our unit of genetics. So we just finished our unit on DNA, so you guys are very familiar with that concept. And so we're moving on to genetics. And so can anybody tell me what a gene is? Just a definition of a gene.
Thanks. A segment of DNA that codes for a trait.
That's even more than what I want from you guys. So for a simple definition, we're going to go with, it's a unit of heredity. Now, do you guys know what genes are on? Do you know what carries the genes in our body?
Chromosomes.
Chromosomes, correct. So genes are carried on chromosomes. Does anybody know how many chromosomes are in the human body? We'll go with how many pairs of chromosomes, not total.
23 pairs.
Exactly, 23. So there's 23 in the human body. Now, this is specific to the human body. All species, most species have different sets. That's what separates us. One of the things that separates us. So can anybody, moving on from that, can anybody tell me a definition of an allele? This one's a little bit tricky. It's not a familiar term. Yeah?
That's what makes your characteristics.
Very
like your
good.
hair color.
That's very good. Yeah, hair color is a great one. So an allele is a variant of a gene. Now, does everybody understand what I mean by a variant?
Like different types of genes?
Yeah, like different types. So like she said before, hair color, there's a gene that codes for your hair color. Now you can have black, brown, blonde, red. Those are all different alleles for the same gene. And so that's how, and so we all carry a gene with a certain allele attached to it. So can anybody give me a definition of a trait?
Is it a particular type of allele?
No, kind of. Kind of, you're very close. So what your body codes for, the gene and the allele that you have, will be expressed as a trait. So that's what you physically see. So for example, I physically have, let's say, dark brown hair. So this is the physical expression. So as you notice, it says physical expression. In the way, it's a little ambiguous, meaning that what you show physically does not necessarily mean that's what your body is coding for. So that's when we'll get into mutations later, and we'll talk about that, and that'll explain that. So now, I want to move on to something called simple dominance. Now you talked about, you might know a little bit about simple dominance. So there, does anybody know anything? Just a few terms maybe about what I'm talking about, simple dominance? Exactly. So not necessarily genes, but there are dominant and recessive alleles for every gene. So a dominant and recessive. Now, they're both from the same gene. They're different alleles though, and each allele codes for a protein. Now, do you guys know that proteins are what code for everything that we make in our body? What makes us today is proteins, and the alleles code for those proteins. Now, the tricky thing with dominant and recessive is that if you have dominant alleles. Now, for example, who has brown eyes in here? So you two have brown eyes. Brown is a dominant allele. Now, can anybody think of what the recessive allele might be? Blue. So that's why the most common eye color is brown, not blue, because it's the dominant allele. And so, for an example, it's brown. And blue is an example of a recessive. Now, your brown allele is coding for a protein. Now, if you have the brown allele, since it's dominant, it will make it so your blue allele does not code for any proteins to make blue eye color. So that's why if you have a brown allele, you will not have blue eyes unless there's a mutation. Now, do you guys know Punnett squares at all? You guys have heard about that, maybe in middle school, earlier biology. an example of a Punnett square. So does anybody have blue eyes that has brown-eyed parents? So isn't that weird? Like, why would you have blue eyes if your parents have brown eyes? Makes you think that your parents are your parents, right? Based on what I've told you, there's no reason you should have blue eyes. Now, things can get tricky. So that's why, for us dumb biologists, scientists, we use simple letters to figure this out. So B, capital B is going to equal brown, the brown allele. The little b is going to equal the blue allele. So to make it possible for you to have blue eyes, that would mean that your parents carry the brown allele, capital B, because they have brown eyes, but they also have a blue allele.
But my dad also has blue eyes.
He has both?
He has blue eyes and my mom has brown.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it a little bit more tricky. So your mom has blue eyes, you said?
My mom has brown eyes and my dad has blue eyes.
There you go. So this is your dad right here. This is your mom up here. And so when you cross these, you come up with these outcomes. Now, based on what you guys know, if someone has this, well, what eye color will they have? Brown, exactly. So, since his dad has this, meaning they have both a dominant and a recessive, or his mom and his dad has two recessives, that makes it so there's a 50% chance, if you look at this half right here, that their offspring will have blue eyes, and that's why you have blue eyes. And so that is a simple form of simple dominance, and I have a worksheet for you guys that you guys are going to work on tonight as homework. There's 3 questions, and they're all going to be all on simple dominance, and from this you guys should be able to handle that easy.